Well, hello and welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode on Lawfolds. This is episode number 10 on this map, and as we begin episode number 10, we also begin a brand new game day. So this is game day number 3, which would be considered late spring. And as you can tell, our fields here that are just right outside of our spawning point are doing well, growing well. We'll just take a quick look at our HUD here, our map overview, and um, we've got field number 26, which is our youngest planted field. We planted that in soybeans. Um, a couple of episodes ago. This is, of course, since the map reset and everything. Field 27 has been plowed but has not been planted, so we will seed that field today or during this game day, not during this episode, but during this game day. And of course, everything else that we own, 32, 33, 34, 31, 28, 29, 30, these fields are all in the same growth cycle, which is a bit unfortunate. But hopefully, as maps tend to evolve after the seasons mod has, of course, come out into full production and everything, I would hope that fields could be set up maybe in sort of in conjunction with seasons mod, so that when we take ownership of a new farm, on a brand new map, that our fields would be in different states of readiness, just so that yeah, just so for that reason. Of course, we could always just on day one we could always just plow these fields under and start all over. But then again, they're still going to be somewhat in tune with each other. If we just look at our soil composition, they're all fertilized up to the first level. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I believe that was Lawfolds number 9. Um, the seasons mod at the present state and time does not consume any fertilizers, so we would just basically be wasting our time and not getting any benefit from it if we were to fertilize these fields beyond where they currently are, beyond the current fertilization levels. So needless to say, we're not going to worry about that. So today, this episode, we're going to start our task of mowing. So yay for that! If you enjoy mowing, if you enjoy watching mowing, then you are in hopefully for a treat. Mowing is one of my favorite things to do. Now, of course, in some of my previous series, I've used the tractors that have the functionality of rotating the driver configuration or changing the driver configuration and everything. We don't have that luxury on this New Holland. So we will be towing this mower setup, which is this is the butterfly mower with the center mower attachment. It's pretty much standard for the maps that I play, just because, well, if you're going to mow, and especially if you're mowing for animal, um, for animal use, animal farming, then you might as well get after it. You might as well use something that you can get some production out of. And so this setup certainly allows us to do that. All the shadows are pretty long this morning. It is 7:32 in the morning. Looks like it could be 7:30 in the evening, but it is morning time. I fast forwarded through the remainder of game day 2, and of course the evening of game day 2. And need to just kind of look here and see if this is how we get into this field. I believe it is. So we'll get out of our tractor and open up our gate here. And of course, I do miss the sounds, the gate sounds that we sort of have been spoiled to on Coldborough Park Farm. Those are a really nice addition to the immersion, the level of immersion and everything that we certainly have. As I mentioned in yesterday's episode, I have sort of suspended production on um, Colborough Park Farm just until the new map is available. And yeah, I think this grass is as tall as it's going to get. I think the growth of the grass is as much as it's going to be. So, you know, the first day I think I told you finding those gold nuggets was made super easy because the grass growth was you know, sort of at its youngest stage. And we'll go ahead and turn on the rear mower and then get back up here and turn on the butterfly mowers. And then thankfully we enjoy single up and down action there. Once you select the butterfly mower, it will go up and it will go down. And we are cutting grass. Alright, so we are cutting our first grass here on Lawfolds. And I was sort of thinking as far as, you know, this first grass mowing exercise, if you want to call it that. I was thinking, well, I could, you know, I could use Follow Me. We could, you know, hire one of our trusty hands here that worked for us, and I could set them up on Follow Me, and have them come along and tether behind us. But I just sort of decided that, well, you know, you wouldn't necessarily tether immediately after you cut the grass, because part of the whole haymaking process, at least the way that it works here in the U.S. and especially in areas where I grew up, like in Texas as an example, is you know, folks would go out and mow their hay fields, their grass fields that they typically use for making hay, and then you know, after that cut grass lays out there in that hot Texas sun for a day or so, then they come along and they tether that, and that just basically flips it over so it can dry further, and then of course they come out and rake it and then bale it. Now we're not gonna, obviously we don't have the luxury of taking multiple game days, because then the grass starts growing again, I would assume, unless the Seasons mod is going to control that. I do know that the Seasons mod does control grass as far as its ability to grow in the winter time, and that's cool. I think that's awesome, because again, you know, we do want the immersion, we want the feeling as if we are actually farming in all 4 season scenarios. That's, I think, is important to us. It's important to me anyways. It's an element that I have sort of longed for, just because in the game as it's set up now, you know, there really is no defined seasons. It's just sort of a combination of spring, summer, and fall sort of rolled into one, because really nothing in the game itself does anything with regards to as we go through our wall there. Sorry about that, folks. You know, the map has to end someplace, and well, that's where it ends on this side of the world anyways. But yeah, I certainly have wanted to have something that had more definition as far as seasons are concerned, because I like to play with immersion, and so I like to have a sense that, you know, we're actually farming in the conditions in which, you know, that someone that owned this farm, that owned this field, that had access to this field or whatever, would certainly be farming and mowing and ultimately tethering and raking and baling hay from this field. So again, thanks to the developers of the soil mod, I'm sorry, of the seasons mod, Hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful day. Hope you've had a wonderful week. And I hope you're enjoying your time on your virtual farms. I mean, I would assume that if you're watching my channel, or if you're watching perhaps anybody's farm sim channel, I mean, I think for me right now, you know, pretty much everything that I'm putting out is farm sim related. Some of the other folks that I tend to follow right now are all somewhat heavy on farm sim content that they're pushing out through their channel. So hopefully if you watch my channel, hopefully you watch some of my other friends, some of my other YouTube friends that I often talk about from time to time, and that you're enjoying their content, and hopefully that you're learning something from our efforts, because for the most part that's why I do this. That's why I record my gameplay, is so that if you see something and you're interested in learning more about that, whether it be a mod, whether it be a process or something of that nature, then you can ask those questions in the comment section, and we can help you. So that's certainly, you know, like I said, that's why I do it, and that's why so many of the others that I tend to call my YouTube friends, my recommended channels, that's why they do it as well. So this is a pretty good size. This is a pretty good size grass field after all. I think that you know, obviously I'm going to go ahead and cut all of this field. I think that this will give us perhaps more than I really need to map a key on my wheel to lifting the mower deck up. It would be a lot easier than reaching across my steering wheel. But yeah, I think that this field is going to probably produce more grass than we could need for our sheep. You know, 6 days, you know, the way that the game works, the game, you know, feeds in, allows you to feed based on the number of animals that you have for 6 days. So obviously 6 days in the case of if we had purchased our animals on game day 1, that would mean that they would have had, or, you know, early in game day 1, that would have meant that they would have had enough food to last them through the entire spring season and the entire summer season. So again, 6 days, I'm playing a 12-day year, a 3-day season. Don't really know how many bells we'll get off this field, but as I said, I think that there will be enough. So what we're going to do is obviously we're going to first mow the grass, and then that is going to be what is going to take up the majority of this episode. We're about halfway through this episode, I suppose, as far as time goes. The next episode, which I guess will be episode number 11, we will probably seed that other field over there and get that going. So that will sort of simulate some time that we're putting in between the mowing process and the tethering process, so that we sort of simulate the grass drying out, at least on after the initial cut. And then of course we will come along and rake and bale. Now I'm going to start off baling square bells, because we're going to first take care of the of our needs, our sheep needs, because again, as of right now, as we go back through the magic curtain, as of right now, raising sheep is what we're doing on this farm. So we're sort of focusing on arable with Lawfolds, with sort of an emphasis, you know, as far as animals goes, animal husbandry. We're dabbling in sheep. We got 100 sheep, so and we did that for the wool. So that will be, obviously that'll be a great thing for us. So we're first going to square bell this, and then if we have a, if we have a relatively large number of square bells, we kind of know that about 5 bells was required to feed the 100 sheep for 6 days. And I know for sure we're going to get more than 5 square bells out of this field. But again, this is just kind of judging. So we're going to take those bells, and we're going to consider that, as just a gauge as to how many bells that we think we're going to need to be able to get through the remainder of the summer season, the fall season, the winter season, and even including the following spring season. Of course, I believe we could probably cut grass again in a few days, so we don't necessarily have to stockpile our entire, year's worth of hay. But needless to say, we're going to bell enough square bells to handle what our needs are, and then we're probably going to then switch and bell round bells, with the idea that we're going to wrap those and sell those as silage. And again, that's just to kind of beef up our money. I'm not really sure what our focus is right now as far as money goes. In other words, what we're necessarily driving towards, what our goal is. Everything that we've purchased up to now has been from the gold nugget find. And just thinking out loud here, other than perhaps a little bit larger tipper trailer that could come in handy both for field use, but also for taking the harvest to market is more what I'm thinking. Just because our fields are all centrally located to our main farm, where our grain silo and everything is located. So making multiple trips from the fields to the grain silo is not a problem. It's not a very long trip at all. But obviously hauling to the sell point obviously is a little bit further. It's a little bit more involved trip. So that might be something that could come in handy. But pretty much we've got everything purchased that we really need to be able to handle the tasks that we need to do right now. We've got the map came with the equipment to harvest the sugar beets, I think, that we have. We've got a corn header, and obviously we've got our combine, we've got our grain header, we've got our mower configuration here. So I mean, we're pretty good to go. We're pretty set as far as equipment goes. But sort of what I'm thinking about with the money situation is perhaps, just perhaps, late in the season, maybe sometime in the harvest, if we're on schedule of getting all of our harvest of the fields that we own, that we presently own right now, and if we had the money available, and of course we've got a credit line at the bank that's available to us, that we might take a look at the opportunity of purchasing another field. But of course, we've just got to sort of wait and see once we sort of reach that point. All right, this tells a pretty good story here, I think. So we'll let this be our thumbnail for this episode, and off we go. More mowing. Morning coffee is excellent this morning. It's something outside must be waking up, which I find a bit odd because it is just the 22nd of January, but my allergies are just a little bit my allergies are sort of talking to me this morning a little bit more than usual. Apologize if my voice is a little bit deeper. A couple of weeks ago, it's kind of funny. A couple of weeks ago, Tyson had left a message, either a comment or maybe he had messaged me privately. I can't remember, but he was asking me if I'd changed my microphone because my voice sounded different. And I explained to him, no, same microphone. I basically use a Plantronics headset, which is you know, as far as headsets go, it's one of the best that you can get for voice over IP communications, and so I'll be honest, I sort of use it for voice over IP when I work from home, so it does sort of serve two purposes. But and I have an external microphone on a mic boom that's connected to a mixer. I used to do some podcasting about a subject completely different from gaming several years ago, and it ran for about 8 years, 9 years or so, and so I have all that set up, but it's a lot easier to just use the headset because it pretty much stays, the microphone stays where I need it to stay as I move my head around and everything, if I'm in cab, obviously. But I can't drive in cab and do this at the same time. But yeah, he had asked about the microphone situation, and I'm like, no. I said, but you know, occasionally the allergies, for whatever reason, and I don't really know because it's pretty much the dead of winter. Nothing is yet woken up here in Colorado to cause me any allergies. But you know, just you know, back in December, starting sort of in mid-December through after the first weekend of January. Obviously, we had our Christmas tree up, and so my wife and I both actually enjoy a real Christmas tree. But I think we realized this year that both of us had some allergies to it that we hadn't noticed before. So don't really know. It wasn't. We got the same brand or same kind of tree that we've always had, but something about it was irritating us a little bit. And of course, when it's really cold here in Colorado, it's the outside humidity is very, very low. And so when you factor in central heat on top of that, that just further dries the air and everything out. And so I think that also affects my allergies. But that's why my voice gets a little bit lower, a little bit deeper. But no. Same microphone setup. I like the microphone setup. I know that I could probably have a little bit better audio using my external microphone, which is a fairly high-end microphone designed for voice, designed for audio recordings and such. but it's a lot more of a hassle. It would take me a lot more time in post-production to get everything going. And you know, there's a lot of folks that that record their audio separate from their video. So like, for example, I use OBS, Open Broadcaster software, which is a free, you know, open source video audio recording, you know, screen capture type application, and I've used it for a number of years. I used to actually use this channel to record and make available my ETS and ETS2 multiplayer activities and recording trolls that cause problems, and then that way you just upload the video and you can report those individuals to Truckers MP, and they'll review the video, and if there's significant evidence that, you know, somebody intentionally trolled you or intentionally ran into you or tried to spoil your game, they, you know, would serve a ban. And so, but anyway, to use the external microphone and to really get the benefit of it, I would really need to record my audio separately. And of course, there's multitudes of programs to do that. I've used Audacity, which has worked really well for me when I've done audio only type recordings. But then taking that and putting that together, for me, because again, I work 45 to 50 hours a week on average. Some weeks are even more than that. And so that would just increase my my post-production time a little bit more than I think that I really want it to. And quite honestly, I think, as far as I'm concerned and what my goal for my channel, I think that my audio and my video and all of that is fine for now. And especially now that I've learned a little bit, you know, back when I first really kicked off the channel, and I've had this channel for, you know, a couple of years, but I haven't really done anything with it. I started in October, I believe it was, recording Paradise Hills for Farm Sim 15, and I know that my audio is kind of all over the place. My intro and outro music was often louder than my audio, my recorded commentary, and so it took just a little while. It looks like a cross or an X there in the field with these white flowers. So, you know, I did improve my, well, basically, to be honest with you all, and I will always be honest with you guys, because again, the reason why I do this is not for vanity. It's not for, you know, it's not self-promotion or anything like that. It's really just about, I just genuinely enjoy helping people, and, you know, that's what I do for a living. I mean, I'm in IT, in the IT world, and I spend, you know, again, 45 to 50 hours a week working in a role that, you know, is really to help people, supporting our voice servers and all the different test environments that our external support teams use for supporting our external customers, all that stuff. Anyway, I just have this nature of really wanting to help people, and that's why I do this. And but I'll be honest with you, and I'll always be honest with you, part of the problems with back in the FS15 days with my audio levels being sort of all over the place was really a lack of understanding or a lack of knowledge on how to get the most out of the video editing software that I use. And I use something that's called Power Director. It's by Cyberlink, and it's certainly not top of the line by any stretch of the imagination. You know, obviously the Adobe Premieres, those kind of things, or obviously your more high-end, your top of the line type solutions, or they may not even be top of the line, but they're certainly well above the fold of some of the other solutions. And it sells, I think right now, the last time I looked a couple of weeks ago, the new version, which I think is either 15 or 16, Power Director 15 or 16, it was like 79 bucks. So again, certainly not as costly as your Adobe type solutions, but I would say that it's fairly robust in the features that are available to use, and it really just, you know, I really just needed to sit down, especially on the audio side of things, and better understand how all that functioned. And then of course I had a little bit of a transition learning curve, I'll just say, when we switched over to 17, because I had to obviously reset all my game levels with the game sound and the environmental sounds, make sure the birds weren't overpowering the sounds of the tractor. And I think, and I've said this before, there is a fine line between providing the experience to you, the viewer, because, and the way I do things, quite honestly, is sort of based on what I enjoy when I sit down to watch someone's recorded gameplay content on YouTube. So for example, there's some people that they turn the equipment, tractor sounds and everything so low that you can barely hear them over their commentary. And to me, that sort of defeats the purpose. I know I try to have enough to talk about so that there's not a lot of gap time, and I try to talk about things that are interesting for you all. I try to talk about, you know, maybe stuff, news, or information that I'm learning about Farm Sim 17 or Cattle and Crops or something like that, and or just talk about the various mods or whatever. But I think that you want to hear the sounds of the equipment. You want to hear the tractor sounds. You want to hear the whirling of the mowers, or the sounds of the baler, or the whirling sounds of the tedder or the rake or whatever. And if you have those things turned down and you can't hear it, then, you know, it sort of takes away from the viewing experience. But I guess long story short is, you know, it took me just a little while, a few episodes, to kind of get things tweaked the way that I wanted them, and make notes on what my settings were in case, you know, in case something changed or whatever. So yeah, my process is my post-production process is down to a science for me that works for me. You know, if anyone is interested in really understanding what that is, I'd be willing to answer questions or whatever. But it really truly works for me. I know that you know, some folks are spending a lot more time in post-production than I am to sort of produce the awesome content and everything that they're doing. But I think that in many cases, you know, especially for the full-time YouTubers, well, that's all they do. I mean, they play games, and they have time to do the post-production stuff. You know, I have maybe an hour a day during the work week, during the Monday through Friday time frame, that I can sort of, you know, play in the evening, and try to, you know, take 60 minutes and get 30-35 minutes of gameplay content out of that. On the weekends I've got a little bit more time, but I try to I edit very little out of my gameplay. Obviously I chop off the beginning and usually the end, because I usually start the recording, the OBS software, and then I usually pause for 15 seconds or so before I start speaking or start doing anything on screen. And then sort of the same thing at the end. I'm usually thanking you all for watching and everything, and then usually we'll trim the end of that off just so that there's not any dead wasted space. And because again, all of this, the larger the video files, the more time it takes to manipulate that, to upload that, for YouTube to render that, all that good stuff, or YouTube to process that, I should say, for our video editing software to render that video and of course upload it. So I try to, I cut very little out. If I make a mistake, most times you're going to see that mistake. If I do cut something out, it's typically because, maybe I've realized that, okay, this just isn't going to work for me. As an example, an episode or two ago, I went and got the grass, the hay bales from the store, brought those down. When you guys saw me unloading those to feed the sheep, this was right after we had purchased our sheep. I was trying to offload them from the trailer, and for whatever reason, even though I had unbuckled the straps and I had unlocked the built-in locking mechanism and everything, when I would try to pick up that stack of bales, it was lifting the trailer up. And I've seen this happen from time to time, and I was just kind of, usually if you just reset your game, or if you just save your game and exit out and come back in, it works correctly. But I really didn't want to take the time to do that, and so I just did an edit, and you might notice that I was picking those bells up from the ground because I had used the auto loading functionality of the trailer to go ahead and set those bells on the ground beside the trailer, and then I picked those bells up from beside the trailer and moved them over and fed the sheep with them. So just something like that. I mean, I will edit that kind of stuff out. But if I run into usually if I run into a car, or let me rephrase that. If a car runs into me, because let's face it, we're all much better drivers than the AI is on any of these maps. And so if a car runs into me, or if I accidentally run into a fence post or a gate or a tree, I typically leave that stuff in there. So, because I mean, why not? It's a mistake. I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be. I'm not the greatest. I'm not the greatest virtual farmer that you're gonna run into. And as I've said before, I'm sure that there are individuals who have varied levels of experience with real-world farming. And as I've said before, I've driven tractors, I've driven forklifts, all this stuff. But my gosh, that's been 20, 30 years ago. But most of the folks that are playing Farm Sim 17, that's especially spending any amount of time creating videos every day and editing and all this stuff, they're not doing this stuff for a living either. And so yeah. All right, well, I have chewed up about an additional 8 or 9 minutes of your time. I don't always know exactly how long these episodes are until the final edits and everything have been done, but usually get a pretty good idea because I don't take a lot out. So this is going to be about 38, 39, 40 minutes, something like that. So I do apologize for taking the extra time. Maybe it's been boring just watching me going up and down the field cutting grass, but it's a story. It's a story that's got to be told. We've got to do these things, as I've said before. I mean, this is and and I'm going to take another minute or two here and just say, hopefully you're all still watching, and just say that, you know, Landy Kid mentioned this a couple of his episodes ago, or a couple of weeks ago maybe. He got some negative criticism because he was just, I don't know, I think he was mowing. I think he was mowing a field, and somebody had said, you know, don't take up the entire episode mowing the field. And Landy Kid's response was, you know, it's his game, it's his game time, it's his channel, and you know, he's telling a story. It's something that's got to be done. I mean, yeah, I could basically show you 15 minutes worth of mowing, and then I could basically cut to doing something else, and yeah, that might be interesting to some people, but you know, this better tells the story. And obviously you're not going to see me mowing this entire field, because I need to finish up this side of it, and then I need to go up to the other end and finish that. So I'm not going to do that on camera. I'm going to wrap things up here in the next minute or two. But I do just want to say that, you know, for those of us that do record our gameplay content and everything, it's a fine line between what makes us happy, because obviously, you know, maybe Landy Kid's in a little bit different situation than I'm in, since that's his source of income, his job is YouTube. But you know, for me, I play the maps that interest me. I play the maps until they don't become fun anymore, or until, you know, I'm either spread so thin that I feel like I've got to, you know, I need to drop something or whatever. And I also do the things on the farm that are fun to me, and mowing grass is something that I enjoy doing, because it is sort of a relaxing element of the virtual farm, and I enjoy doing it. So, but having said all of that, I'm going to say thank you for watching. I do appreciate that. Please check out my website at grizzlybearsims.com. You'll find a complete list of all the mods that I'm using on that website, as well as other occasional written articles on some of the mods that I use, or just some of the news that's happening in the sim community. I do often write about flight sim, farm sim, truck sim, etc. And the other thing that I will just say is also check out the links to PCSG and the 3 Dudes Gaming Network. I hang out on both of those communities, and if you have questions or such about the game, please either leave those in the comments section, or come on over and join those communities, PCSG and 3 Dudes Gaming Network. We'd love to have you. Very friendly communities, and the communities are geared towards new players. So we welcome any and all questions. No question is a stupid question. You're not going to get your hand slapped because you asked a question that may have already been asked before. We're very understanding about these kind of things. And I appreciate you watching my channel. I really do. Please check out some of my featured channels down below in the featured channels list. And until next time, I'm going to head over here and cut the rest of this grass. And when we come back for the next game day, we will do some seeding. So take care now, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Bye-bye.